Any further debate?
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Second. I support the intention of this, but this amendment is not ready for the prime time. And the reason I would say that, and I said that to my friend from California, there may be a point where we want to liquidate a big bank for whatever reason. They're insolvent. We go to liquidate a big bank. It may have derivatives as part of it, of the things that then we have to liquidate as well to recoup money for the depositors. And so when this says you can't use any federal money to acquire any type of equity interest or security, I understand the intention, which is we're not trying to prop up people who gamble, and I'm completely in agreement with that. If they want to gamble, they can gamble on their own. But there may be instances, and this is why it really does fit within the too big to fail, the systemic risk bill, because that's where we're going to say, how do you liquidate something? And I know on the Republican side, the suggestion has been that you're going to do a Chapter 11-like liquidation. Then you're going to be spending all sorts of money to try to liquidate these darn things. So I appreciate the sentiment, and I appreciate where you're coming from and where the gentleman from California is coming from, but this just isn't going to get it done.
If the gentleman would yield. This has nothing to do with the FDIC's right to liquidate banks. This deals only with assistance to clearing operations or liquidations of a derivative clearing operation. And the government does not presently have any obligation to do that, but we are creating legislation, or we're considering legislation that is going to push trillions of dollars worth of derivatives onto these.
Gentleman has claimed his time back. Gentleman from Colorado.
The point is that if you have to declare something insolvent, this says there will be no money of any kind from the federal government that will go towards derivatives in any way. And generally, I agree with that, but there is going to be a point where institutions we find insolvent or are systemically risky, and we take them down, we liquidate them, and that's going to require federal funds in connection with that, and I don't want us to be caught in a catch-22 where, on the one hand, we want to liquidate something and get rid of these things, but on the other hand, we say you can't do it.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Well, I think, though, as amended now, to be germane, it's consistent with what the gentleman says. That is, it says nothing in this act authorizes that. That would not prohibit, under the FDIC Act, that was stricken from the original language. With the original language, it would have been vulnerable to the gentleman's point. But to make it germane, it wasn't. The other point I would say is this. We are talking here about the gentleman's time.
Mr. Frank, I would just, it says, shall be construed, no provision of this title shall be construed to authorize federal assistance to support the clearing operations or liquidation of a derivatives clearing organization. So if we want to declare something insolvent.
The gentleman would yield to me. That says this title, it does not prohibit this being done from other titles. By the time we get finished, there will be, I believe, severe constraints on other titles, but it would not affect the Federal Deposit Insurance Act, for instance.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from, and people can vote as they want, I want to be able to liquidate these darn things. I don't want to, I want us to not support derivatives. If you want to engage in derivatives, trades, or swaps, fine, that's your business. If you lose money, that's your problem. It's not the government's problem.
Yes,
but on the other hand, if we have to declare an institution insolvent...
The gentleman yield further?
Okay.
It says, except where explicitly authorized by an act of Congress. We are going to be dealing, as the gentleman knows, as the final piece of this, with systemic risk, with resolution authority, and that's the context in which this would then be addressed.
All right, I'll yield back and still vote no.
The question now is, gentleman from Texas.